Welcome back to Are You a Fan, where we explore individual characters from your favorite sci-fi, action, and fantasy genres. A big thank you to MoonBound Productions for supporting today's episode. If you would like to express your support, please like and share the show. Here's your hosts, d-rael and Joker.
Hello, fans. Give us a click, like, link, and maybe even leave a comment to this question I got for Joker and y'all in the audience. Joker, if you could be one fantasy, mythical creature, what would it be?
Personally, I would definitely be a dragon. Because I've always been drawn to them just in shows and movies. They're some pretty epic creatures.
I mean, heck, it's not a bad pick.
Bad, and I kind of want that horde.
What would your horde? We can ask that question next time. I think for me, I don't know, maybe a werewolf. I just feel like that'd be nice. Just once a month, just lose my mind and just let it all out.
And you're already halfway there. You're hairy enough.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just think it'd be a nice little add-on. So that should lead us into our character for this week. Happy Halloween, folks, for anybody listening on Halloween. But we are doing Dracula from the Marvel Universe. So let's get into it.
One of many, many versions.
Oh, yeah, quite a few. So this year we're just focusing on Marvel's version. And let's get on into it. Let's go real world first. As far as publication history, Gary Conway was the creator of Marvel's version of Dracula, and Gene Colan in The Tomb of Dracula. Ooh. Volume 1, issue number 1 in 1972. Co-written by Marv Wolfman. Wolfman.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely some irony in that.
There's so much irony in it, and I love it. Okay.
And so, obviously, as the name would suggest, he is based on the vampire Count Dracula from the novel of the same name, written by the author Bram Stoker.
Which we will get into later on, a little bit more into that. So traditionally, the Comics Code Authority prevented Marvel from publishing vampire comics. This was revised in early 1971 when comics were allowed to publish characters and being from established literary works.
Which, that makes sense because they don't want to be taking stuff from other things that are already out there.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you can't do this. Well, it makes sense.
It does, and it's a nice little workaround, at least. Because I remember at one point, the comics codes literally prevented you from having any dead things. So
they prevented a lot
of weird things.
Because it came up in one of our previous episodes about the whole marriage thing with Vision.
Oh yeah, Vision and Scarlet Witch. You couldn't show a couple kissing unless they were married.
Yeah, so comics code has definitely affected a lot of comics in the past,
and it's affected him on weird things. I kind of get the kissing. It was a weird time.
Yeah.
America's been weird about that. But being you can't have vampires or zombies. What?
Yeah.
So,
and Dracula actually wouldn't even be the first vampire to appear in Marvel Comics after this change. He would follow a few months after Morbius the Living Vampire, who would appear in The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 101 in October of 1971.
Oh damn! That's kind of a cool little nod. Because I remember, I think they created because technically Morpheus isn't a vampire; he's the living vampire. That was their little okay, comics code. We'll call you and we'll raise you.
Right.
He's a living vampire. He turned that way through science, so he's not dead. The comics code is yeah, I guess. A fun little thing. The version of Dracula also starred in Dracula Lives, a black and white horror comic magazine series published by Marvel from 1973 to 1975. Just kind of a cool little standalone series.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like he had a lot of those, especially early on.
Which would make sense, Marvel at the beginning, especially during this Comics Code BS and that, probably just keep it separate in case they have to kill it.
Yep.
And that it won't affect the main storylines of anything.
Exactly. And that title would also run concurrently with The Tomb of Dracula, the the continuities of the two titles occasionally would overlap, with stories weaving between the two of them.
Which also makes sense. Okay, Tomb of Dracula initially kept its distance from the rest of the company's properties. Marvel...
Not Marvel.
Not Marvel. My bad. Marv Wolfman... I'm not going to get tired of that. Said, to me, the horror books were outside the Marvel universe. It was a hard enough problem creating mood, tension, and suspension in a comic book, which is all still pictures, but then to have to worry about superheroes or supervillains at the same time, it didn't feel that would work. Which that kind of makes sense.
Oh, it definitely does, especially because like when you get into the mythical creatures, that's a whole different kind of line of, hey, this is what's got to be created through this. And compared to, your normal superheroes, it's very different.
Yeah, so it kind of, yeah. Because I'll admit, definitely back then probably would have altered the mood of the comic.
Yeah.
Which, so many other comics. I think he just looked around other comics that attempted it and failed and was just like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Most likely. But, of course, like every major company, the potential for a sales boost and crossover eventually becomes too tempting. And Dracula appeared in the first issue of Giant-Size Spider-Man, July of 1974. Because, they saw the potential for money and they couldn't stop themselves.
Yeah, that is the problem with corporation comics. However, that problem led to us having Dracula in the main Marvel universe. So I call it a win. Also, Spider-Man, like, really, what the heck is going on that attracts these guys to?
He's literally brought in both of the major vampires of Marvel.
Yeah. Wow. Dang, dude, Spider-Man just, like, he's got to wonder at some point, where, the scene from the movie when he's pouring the sand out of his boots, like, where do these guys come from?
Yeah. Wow, talk about a throwback.
Yeah, dang.
To a set of Spider-Man movies that a lot of us would rather forget.
I'd at least rather forget the third one existed.
Yeah.
Okay. Although Dracula and the other vampires were eventually destroyed by the mystical Montesi formula in the pages of Doctor Strange. Of course, Doctor Strange would have to do with that.
I mean, who's better suited for it in their comics?
True.
Especially at that point, because, until Dracula brings in the whole Van Helsing family later on, there's really no one better to deal with a mystical creature than a mystical arts guy.
Yeah, especially because I'm not 100% sure if Blade existed at this point.
I don't think he did.
In continuity, I'm sure,
I'm not even sure if he existed at this point at all, to be honest. I don't know when Blade started.
I'm not 100% on that. Ooh, we should do him next year for Halloween.
Heck yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Marvel published a 4-issue Tomb of Dracula miniseries reuniting Wolfman and Colin. I love it. Under its Epic Comic imprint in 1991. And revived Dracula and his foes in the short-lived Night Stalkers and Blade series in the 1990s. Most recently, Dracula took the title role in the miniseries Dracula, Lord of the Undead. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
At least, and we don't know when exactly the stuff with Doctor Strange happened, but at least now we have an idea of when Blade came into it.
Yeah, that gives us...
in the 90s.
Gives us a decent timeline, like late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around there. Because like that was just with Dracula. We don't know maybe if he had a couple issues before. Ladies and gentlemen, the in-universe. Okay, there's a lot, so buckle up. Let's get started. Born Vlad Tepes Dracula in 1430 in Schasberg, Transylvania, now Saisora.
Yeah, I have no clue how to pronounce that.
Saisora.
Some town in Romania.
He was the second son of a Transylvanian nobleman. He was named Prince of Transylvania and voivode, which means prince apparently, of Wallachia.
Wallachia.
Well,
I was like, you think watching the Helsinger Bridge would help you with that one?
it still messes me up. Wallachia.
I think it's because you're actually seeing the word, not just listening to it now.
Yeah, that's got to be the part that's messing with me. And becomes ruler while still a child. Over the next several years, he struggles against the Ottoman Turks, losing and regaining his throne through an arranged marriage to a Hungarian noblewoman, Zofia. He sires a daughter, Lilith. He sent his wife and daughter away and later married a woman named Maria, with whom he had a son named Vlad Tepelus. God, those parents. It's like, I'm going to name him right after me, but I'm going to slightly change it.
Right.
He had a son with his third wife, Domini, named Janus.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, him sending his first wife away had something to do with a war or someone being, like, it was the people that were killing it. They killed his dad.
Well,
there was a lot of actual detail that went into that whole first paragraph that we left out.
Well, if it has anything to do with, which Marvel seems to have kept his historical origin fairly accurate, if it's anything close to what happened in history, then yes, it would be he sent them away for protection, but it didn't quite work out.
Yeah.
So, moving on.
So, in 1459, Dracula was supposedly defeated by the Turkish warlord Tarak and mortally wounded, although in another account it is suggested that he defeated the Turks but was mortally wounded by a nearly immortal mutant, Sabah Nur, better known as Apocalypse. Either way, he would be brought to a gypsy named Leonda to be healed. However, she was a vampire, and in revenge for his persecution of the gypsies, she transformed Dracula into a vampire as well. Tarak would later rape and kill Dracula's wife, Maria, and in revenge, Dracula would slay Tarak and make him into a vampire as well. And then Dracula would give his son, Vlad Tepelus, to the gypsies to raise.
Huh. Which, wow, a lot of trading hands, a lot of trading sides, and a lot of trading babies.
And this definitely is kind of the first in the pattern that Vlad had with turning enemies into vampires or people doing things to him because of stuff he's done. Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth hate over the centuries.
Which you gotta wonder, when that gypsy turned him into a vampire, did she think he would, like, I'm gonna turn this war-driven warlord into a vampire? That's a good idea.
Yeah, it probably wasn't a good idea at the time, but it did weirdly work out for them in the end.
True, it actually
he did kind of then see them as his people, and we all know how Vlad is with his people.
True, he's very protective of his people. For those of you who don't know anything about the actual historical Vlad,
or pretty much any version of Vlad,
yeah, which Marvel did a great job of keeping his characteristics from the historical figure. Okay, so yeah, let's go moving on a little bit here. Dracula defeated the vampire... Okay, folks, you're going to get why. Dracula defeated the vampire Nimrod the First.
What kind of vampire would be named Nimrod?
Yeah.
Like, that is such a horrible idea. Who would name their kid Nimrod?
Somebody who really did not want to have that kid.
That's like that song, A Boy Named Sue.
Yeah, holy cow.
Clearly they did not like this kid.
Either that or they really want him to be, like, real tough. Okay, so he defeats Nimrod the First in battle and thus succeeded him as ruler of Earth's vampires. Soon afterward, he enhanced his own blood with that of Varney, giving him greater powers than any other vampire. In 1471, Dracula abdicated his princehood. So, okay, let's go over a few things in there. First off, we already kind of covered the Nimrod.
But another thing on that, though, the fact he's called Nimrod the First, really makes you wonder how many Nimrods there are
Yeah.
to follow.
Like, you got, because you almost think, let's compare it to the boy named Sue. Clearly, it did drive him to become the leader of the vampires on Earth until Vlad came up and took the throne. But still, that's not too shabby.
No.
I guess none of his other kids, though, ever really accomplished anything after he named them that because I don't think we hear about Nimrod from this point on.
Nope.
Those Nimrods. Okay, so I guess let's kind of move on now. That's kind of all I wanted to say, my piece on that.
So now into a very short section of the 1500s. During this century, Dracula would encounter alchemist Esteban Diablo and battled Puritan adventurer Solomon Kane. Kane would escape with his life, but soon returned, feeling guilty for leaving Dracula alive. Kane and Morgott, I'm assuming, just barely managed to defeat Dracula, staking him with a sharpened, ornate cross. It was only a few hours, however, before a hungry band of travelers arrived at Castle Dracula, reviving him when one took the valuable cross from Dracula's seemingly ancient skeleton. At one point, a man named d-rael managed to steal Dracula's diary, which revealed several of his weaknesses and would eventually become one of the sources adapted by writer Bram Stoker into the novel Dracula. Around the turn of the century, Dracula relocated to a new castle, Dracula, this time near Burgo Pass, which served as his main base of operations off and on for over 4 centuries.
Holy cow.
So, a decent chunk happened there in the 1500s.
Yeah, I always find it funny, like, because technically you can stop and kill Dracula. He just has, like, a billion contingency plans to bring himself back.
Well, that's like most of the ways to kill Dracula, you have to do a lot of different things. You can't just stake him. That's just a temporary, you're not being dealt with right now, but you're not doing anything to us.
Yeah. I also find it kind of humorous, like, okay, so I'm Dracula. I'm a bad guy. I own that I'm a bad guy. Why would I ever write down my weakness anywhere?
Because, it's a great plot hole and loophole for
and
comic.
I get those exist. I get why it exists. I get that's why that exists.
Yeah. I think that's the only reason.
It always bothers me because I'm just like, no villain worth their salt and evil would ever write down their weakness anywhere. A good guy,
I know. A lot of them write down their plans. That's kind of an equivalent.
Yeah, that bothers me too sometimes, especially when it's a simple plan.
But I do love that in this section that is where they first bring up that Bram Stoker exists in the Marvel Universe too.
Ooh, yeah.
He's not just the normal one that we know of that created Dracula. But it's like, nope, here he is in Marvel as well, doing pretty much the same thing.
Yep, except he's actually like taking info from real things that are happening in his universe.
Yep.
And just adding to it, which is kind of a cool thing.
And which we kind of get a little bit later too.
Yep, so we'll cover that in in a couple, like, what, centuries here?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving into the 1600s. For a time, Dracula ruled over a Spanish province, but was driven out following the first of many encounters with a radiant golden angel, which I couldn't really find. Granted, I did not look up who the angel was or anything like that, but like in his story, it never really goes into detail in any of the stuff I found on Dracula as to what the angel's deal is.
I mean, other than just being an angel, it doesn't sound like there was much to her, because it also, from what I looked in, it didn't seem like they actually encountered each other all that often.
Yeah.
Or they just left out a lot of the encounters because they were probably too small.
Because I went during the research on Dracula, I think I found like 1, maybe 2 other encounters it mentioned.
I think we only have one other one off the top of my head that I can think of in this script.
Yeah, I think it might only be 1. But okay, so Golden Angel, and
in 1661, Dracula would find himself a wife in America, Charity Brown of Salem, Massachusetts. Of course. But before he could go and be with her, she would be executed for being accused as a witch. Because, now we got started the Salem witch trials.
Yep, got to get that going somehow. Oh, yeah, It's not great. Killing Dracula's people is one thing, but we've seen how he can react to a lover. So Dracula manipulated the slave Tituba into setting into motion the infamous Salem witch trials.
Which I find weird that knowing that that's kind of what caused his first kind of wife in America, that's why she was killed. Why would you initiate more of that? That makes no sense.
I mean, I guess similar to why, like, I don't know, just kill them all. Because emotion-based people don't think rationally about whole things.
But that doesn't even make sense in that. It's like, if it was the other way around, where, like, the witches killed someone he cared about, then I can understand him initiating the witch trials. But the fact the woman he liked was killed because they thought she was a witch, why would you continue that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any explanation other than, emotional people don't make sense. That's the only thing
that we can use, and it's not even a good excuse.
Yeah, but at the same time, I've seen some people make some rash decisions emotionally that arguably are dumb on this level, and I'm like, wow, people are dumb. So it's honestly, it may not be the best excuse, but it's one that's valid.
Yep. So this next section is definitely probably one of my favorite parts of the entire script. So in the 1670s, Dracula would find himself without sustenance in rural Switzerland, kept from a human prey by the rural farmers' extensive and sometimes extensively superstitious anti-vampiric defenses. Forced to make do with cow's blood, Dracula inadvertently created the bizarre Bessie the Hell Cow.
Yay!
The hellish heifer would spend 3 centuries trailing Dracula before it met its end at the hands of Howard the Duck.
Yes!
But I just love that he makes a hell cow.
And see, I forgot the hell cow existed because I'm pretty sure Deadpool has had some run-ins with the hell cow.
I didn't even know the hell cow existed until this, and I'm so happy to know about it now.
Oh yeah, I always forget it exists until somebody mentions another character, and they're like, yeah, and then they had a run-in with Bessie the hell cow. I'm like, yes, that exists.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to actually look into this a little bit more because that is just amazing.
Oh yeah, she is.
But I also love that the cow meets its end by Howard the Duck, of all characters in Marvel.
Howard the Duck, a duck detective from an alternate reality.
Oh, you gotta love Marvel,
right? Okay, moving on. Let's go 1700s. In 1753, Dracula was in Cologne, Germany, when a group of villagers managed to capture him and tie him to a stake. The villagers' priest, Father Einser, doused him with holy water and drove a stake into his chest. And I find the irony of him being tied to a stake is quite heavy for anybody who knows his historic real-world history. I mean, granted, the stake normally went under the people he would do it to, but, you know, it was there.
I didn't realize what you were going with until you did that part. Now I understand your reference.
Yep.
Okay.
Like I said, you kind of need to know the character's real-world history. Okay. Presented at the execution was Eisner's adopted daughter, Marie. After destroying the vampire, Father Eisner suffered a massive heart attack. That evening, little Mary Eisner removed the stake from Dracula's chest, resurrecting the vampire. She struck a bargain with him, swearing that she would acknowledge Dracula as her savior if he agreed to use his powers to save Father Eisner's life. Which,
yeah, there's those kids and those emotions again, because they never make a good choice, ever.
Nope. Gah.
I mean, because where would you think pulling a stake from a vampire's chest was a good idea?
Right? Like, there's never been a situation where that's worked out for anybody.
And very clearly did not work out for her, because even though Dracula would agree, he would, instead of saving Eisner's life, he instead would tear his heart from his chest and present it to Marie as a demonstration of his vile power. and he would then attack her again, but Marie dangled her cross charm in front of Dracula's face, forcing him to flee. And Dracula would swear that one day she would beg him to give her life everlasting. It would be 70 years before the two would see each other again.
Dang.
I just love that he just got basically defeated by a little girl.
Right?
Just by dangling her across. Like, nope, you ain't doing nothing to me.
I always love how that is like a major trope of this epically powerful, immortal being. Little tiny cross on a chain.
Right?
It's like, back, you demon.
Gotta love the old school vampire stuff.
Right? It's like, dude, just reach around. From what I can tell, it's not a force field. It just burns you if you touch it. I've accidentally burned my hand on a stove. You don't see me avoiding cooking. Moving on. Castle Dracula itself was endangered during the 18th century. First by pirate Helen de Ville, who was killed by her own crew when Dracula exposed her as a witch. And then by the combined military threats of Turkey and Catherine the Great's Russia. Oh, holy cow. Dracula was forced to flee Transylvania, and he relocated to France in 1762.
So, I wonder if Helen has any relation to Cruella de Vil.
Oh, God.
I just love the look in your face before I made the connection at the end. You're like, what are you talking about? And then you just see it click in your head. It's like, oh, that was a horrible joke.
Yeah. But I love what I love about Dracula's story so far in this Marvel universe is all the historical events he's been privy to.
Right. It's like, he's not even always really involved in them. He's just around.
Yeah. Like, Catherine the Great.
Like, she is a fairly famous Russian leader from history.
Yeah, like...
And apparently she has run-ins with Dracula.
Yep, and she drove him out, too. Like, it wasn't even like I'm going to have this epic war with Dracula. It's like, we're going to go in there, we're going to ransack him, and we're going to run him out of town. We all clear on the plan? Cool. Which, honestly, makes her seem very powerful.
Right.
Okay.
So, while in France, he would rekindle his feud with Caligula. I'm going with Caligula. But he would rekindle this feud after destroying a gargoyle animated by Caliglia's agent, Jacques Dubois. At least that one I know how to pronounce for sure.
Oh, killing gargoyles. God dang, Dracula's history is so fun. After becoming an advisor to King Louis...
Pretty sure it's the 16th.
Louis the 16th. Thank you. In 1775, Dracula surmised Cagliostro no longer had the dark hold. No longer fearing the Montesi formula, Dracula vampirized Cagliostro's wife, Lorenza Serafina, as a retribution for past slights. Holy cow, that was a rough one for me to get through.
Yeah, it was. That was entertaining.
Oh, God.
I love that at this point in the story, a very large portion of Dracula is just going back and forth with enemies. Like, you did this to me, I'm going to vampirize this person. Well, you did this to this person, I'm going to stake you.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of back and forth. Like, you know how much stuff you could avoid if you just leave people alone, Dracula.
Yeah, dude, if you just, like, you're an immortal, timeless being. You know what your victory is? You're going to outlive them.
Yeah.
Just leave. just like, you know what? They staked you. So what? Just stop messing with this family that clearly has the capability to stake you.
Well, everybody apparently has the ability to stake them.
Yeah, you got taken out by some villagers, Dracula. Your days of terrorizing the Turks are over.
In 1789, Dracula was nearly destroyed by Montplaisir. That's what I'm going with. Another one of Cagliostro's agents, but would escape in the confusion of the storming of the Bastille. Fleeing France, Dracula vampirized Austrian Henry Sage, and soon after, Transylvanian lady Louisa Rusoff. You know, here he is again, vampirizing other people.
Yep. Like I said, I feel like Marvel literally took the real world equivalent of Dracula and put him in here because his history just seems like a series of major victories immediately followed by major defeats. Like, not simple losing battle. Like, he is winning wars and then immediately losing wars.
Yeah,
Like,
it is very entertaining to be listening to all this.
like, dang, highs and lows. Like, no middle grounds, really. Which, I mean, I go big or go home, I guess.
And he is doing both.
Yeah.
He's going big and then he's going home.
Yep. So, okay. Here in 1795, he was staked by her husband, Baron Grigory Rozov, who was bitten by a female werewolf in the attempt. So now we're getting into the werewolf versus vampire thing. Grigory thus became the first in a long line of Rusovs bearing the curse of the lycanthrope. After the stake was inevitably removed and he was reanimated, Dracula decided to augment Castle's defenses with various traps. Not the least of these were Dracula's infamous pit of death.
At least he's finally learning to actually put some defenses up.
Right? I feel like he relied too heavily for too long on the fact that he was a immortal vampire.
And
He's like,
just hoping his presence would scare people off.
yeah, he's like, you know what?
Clearly it did not.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I'm a warrior vampire. I have a horde. Who's gonna mess with everybody?
Everybody does, Dracula.
Everybody's
Everybody.
messing with you. And they're not doing a bad job of it either.
No. So, now into the 1800s. On 1823, Dracula would return to Cologne, Germany. He forced his way into the hospital room of the dying Sister Marie Eisner at the Reichenbach Clinic and demanded that she acknowledge him as her savior. Sister Marie always knew that Dracula would one day return to claim her, but still, she renounced him. And as the vampire lunged for the frail woman, she slipped a crucifix necklace around his neck, forcing him to recoil, and Sister Marie then peacefully passed away. Because, he can't even outdo an old, frail woman in a hospital bed.
Oh my god.
I love Dracula, but this is starting to get really embarrassing.
It is, but it's kind of endearing that he still keeps going and trying.
Right? It's like, I keep failing miserably and embarrassingly, but, we're going to keep going.
It's endearing, too, because, he is a villain, so this is arguably better than Raiden. Because Raiden was trying to help other people and kept messing up. This guy's trying to just get his own shit together. He's like,
And he can't even do that.
And he can't even do that. Oh man, it's like watching a sitcom character.
He is 0-2 against Marie. Like, literally.
And that record will stand for possibly eternity, because now she's dead.
Yeah.
And unless he can somehow bring her soul back to play chess or something.
He'd probably still lose.
Right?
He lost her as a kid and an old frail woman. He ain't gonna beat her.
Oh, she's got this. Okay, so moving on. Dracula also used the Children of Judas vampire cult to vampirize the wife of Abraham Van Helsing, reviving this old feud with the Van Helsing's family.
Because, after a century or two of not dealing with him, he couldn't just leave it alone and not deal with him.
Yeah, clearly they stopped messing with you.
And clearly he likes, as he's not done with this another family, just bringing stuff back up.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are done. Leave it.
Oh.
No, I'm going to start this war up again.
Holy cow, Dracula is that uncle that comes to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
Or that aunt.
That just keeps bringing up the past. I'm like, why?
Yeah. Like, your mom ditched me at a movie theater when I was 8. And it's like, Uncle Steve, for God's sakes, get over it and get a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dracula would again be drawn into politics when Liza Strong convinced him to kill her husband, Archibald Strong, thus assuring that Otto von Bismarck would become minister-president of Prussia. Liza ultimately betrayed Dracula, having him ambushed and staked, again. When he recovered, he vampirized Liza in retribution. Again. Because, it's just a pattern at this point.
It really is. That's
you stake him, you just seal your fate of being a vampire now.
Yeah.
Except for unless you're Murray.
Which, I mean, at a certain point, does anybody, like, maybe take a page out of her playbook and just start carrying across? Like,
not enough, apparently.
Apparently, no. If that's the only thing that I feel really, like, confident if I lived in the Marvel Universe that I would never be vampirized. Because if I just have to buy a $2 cross from, like, Walmart or something, right? I think I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess moving on. Charmed by an American woman he had met in Europe, Dracula purchased the frigate Raven in 1862 and traveled to Savannah, Georgia, which I had to look up like what that was because I didn't even know there was a town called Savannah in Georgia.
After arriving in Savannah, Dracula agreed to bolster the Confederate army with his Legion of the Damned in exchange for Annabelle's return to Transylvania. Though the Legion slaughtered all the Union troops they came across, Annabelle's father recognized Dracula for what he was and staked him. Annabelle, determined to honor the bargain, removed the stake and returned to Transylvania with him. So I think this is actually one of the first people that didn't automatically become vampirized after staking Dracula.
Yeah, I mean, I guess good thing he was infatuated with the daughter.
Right.
Because
otherwise he probably would have.
Also, I'm just saying, Dracula's not a character I'd be breaking deals with. Because
I mean, technically, the dad didn't have a deal with him.
Yeah.
So technically, there was no deal broken in this.
Still,
just the dad actually, realized how bad of a person Dracula was. It's like, I don't want my daughter anywhere near you.
Which, I mean, fair. And I guess, the dad wouldn't know his history of how much he holds grudges.
Yeah, no. Clearly not, because he wouldn't have staked him otherwise.
Yeah, because I'm just saying I wouldn't want an immortal who holds grudges and, like, paying attention to my existence.
Right.
I don't need that. Okay, so in 1870, Dracula took advantage of the onset of the Franco-Prussia War by using his vampire legion to occupy Vienna. Upon entering the imperial palace, however, Dracula was again confronted by the mysterious Golden Angel and forced to flee the city. You gotta wonder if this Golden Angel's just literally more of a trying to keep the timeline. It's just like, you're not supposed to be here.
That's almost what it's starting to feel like.
Just show, because it doesn't seem like the angel really does anything. It just shows up and is like, Scott, shoot,
right?
shoot.
Like get. It's like a pest control.
Yeah, like bring me the broom, God, bring me the broom.
A little later on, when the pirate Captain Cutlass looted a French ship bearing some of Dracula's wealth in 1875, Dracula would vampirize the captain in front of his 3-year-old daughter, Marianne.
Dang!
I mean, he's done some dark stuff, but that one I feel like the dark. Well, yeah. Next to ripping out the dad's heart in front of his daughter, this is definitely the second darkest thing he's done.
Yeah, like, dang, bro. Okay, Dracula is probably... Okay, moving on, because, wow. Dracula is probably most famous for the events of 1890, which would later be compiled from various journals and clippings and adapted by Bram Stoker into his most famous novel, Dracula. And here's where shit gets a little funny and crazy.
Yeah, this one's actually pretty entertaining.
Okay.
Because Dracula's stolen diary would finally fall into Stoker's hands, and Dracula was published a year later. Oddly enough, Dracula actually would read the novel and penned a venomous letter accusing Stoker of lying, Harker of an opium addiction, and Van Helsing of being part of a long line of charlatan magicians bearing a grudge against him. And for good measure, he would curse the letter, writing that any who found it would be devoured by his children of the night. American journalists Mark Corder and David Fraser became the first to discover the letter a century later, and did indeed fall victim to the curse.
Which, that's kind of a dick move.
Makes me wonder if they got vampirized.
Yeah, right.
Knowing his history, they probably did.
I mean, probably. I do love that though. Like, this is the equivalent of like of somebody like making a movie or writing a book like about somebody's life and that person's still being around and just
Right.
writing like that is not at all what went down. Like, oh man, there was like a movie that did come out about somebody's life and the guy was like severely angry about it.
Probably a lot of them, to be honest.
Yeah, but like, yeah, no, I just love that though. Like, oh, that's not right. That guy was a druggie, and those people are just charlatans. Just
And I love that he's like, nope, those are all lies. You are tarnishing my name.
Right.
And now, Dracula, you're doing a pretty good job of that on your own.
because I feel like with the Van Helsings, it's like, so if they're such charlatans, why have they been such a pain in your ass for these centuries? Couldn't you have stopped this at the head at some point?
Right.
Like, just, killed the bloodline, which you've clearly failed at.
A lot of times.
Okay, so now let's move on.
We briefly touch, kind of cutting out a lot of his history because there's way too much to continue on. We briefly touch into 1940s during World War II.
Yeah, because Dracula actually kind of got forced to be involved.
Because in 1942, World War II would come home to Dracula, Castle Dracula, where the Count discovered his gypsy servants were being killed by the Nazis.
And as we said earlier, there's one thing that Vlad Draconis the Impaler is, and it is loyal to his people.
And you don't mess with his people.
Yep. He is basically kind of a nice counterpart to Doctor Doom in that world.
Yeah.
Because they're both very similar to that. The Count opposed the Nazis, even lending aid to an invading American unit, Nick Fury's Howling Commandos. Ow! The Commandos continued to work with Dracula even when his vampiric nature was revealed. Percival Pinkerton promised he would inform Dr. Van Helsing of Dracula's whereabouts. Dracula welcomed the challenge.
Because, why not throw some Van Helsing into World War II also?
Right? Also, Dracula, do you welcome the challenge? Because you don't exactly have a good record with taking these people on.
Yeah, no, but I guess he figured, maybe another century. He was like, oh, let's try it again.
Yeah, I guess. Fuck, might well.
During World War II, the Weapon Plus commandeered the Ravencroft Institute and began conducting experiments on the inmates with the aid of Count Dracula, turning several of them into grotesque vampiric monstrosities. When Captain America and Bucky Barnes attacked the Institute looking for a friend of theirs, Jonas Ravencroft unleashed the vampiric monsters on the Weapon Plus personnel before committing suicide.
Punked out like a bitch. I had to. So, okay, yeah, not the greatest thing when you're fighting Nazis. Maybe not the greatest thing to start doing the exact things that the enemy is doing.
I'd say this is slightly worse. That's really hard to put that in. When you're comparing to what the Nazis did, it's really hard to say anything's worse. But I feel like turning things into vampiric monstrosities is very, very close.
Let's call it parallel.
We'll go with that because I was like, I don't want to undermine what happened during that because some horrible stuff happened, but this is up there.
Yeah, this is definitely like a close second. Horrible thing. That's why I'm saying, like, maybe, guys, are we the Nazis now?
Right.
Have we become what we're fighting?
Are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
We have skulls on our hats.
Okay.
And now, with that kind of section, talking about Cap and Bucky, while he did fight with the Howling Commandos, it was never really expressed that he fought with Captain America.
Yeah,
this is kind of the closest we have to them being in the same room officially.
Yep, and because I tried to look, there's no hard evidence. The only hard evidence is something that we will get to in just a little bit here, and that's not even comic evidence that we will be getting to. But moving on a little bit here, let's finish out this World War II section. In 1944, the Nazis occupied Castle Dracula itself. Using it as regional headquarters, Dracula vampirized their commander, Hauptmann Rudolf Chris, took bodily possession of him, and led him to kill his own troops. Chris had no recollection of his vampiric activities and began to hunt for vampire killer that ultimately led back to him. He was staked by his second in command, Lieutenant Willie Hansen.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't take anybody serious if their name was Willie.
Right? Hey, Willie. Willie, my boy. I don't know why I'm saying it in that accent.
But I love that he's just like, no, we're going to take the commanders, make him do all the work, and make them think he did it.
Which, looking back at Dracula's entire history, you're like, wait, you had that?
Right, it's like, why have you never done this before?
You had that ability all along? It's like in those movies when somebody, like, does the epic thing. It's like, oh, wait, you're telling me we could have avoided all this?
Right.
So, but that is Dracula's in-comics, in-world origins, and
a lot of really funny moments of his life.
Yeah, which that was the hardest part, trying to cut some of that out, because he just has a lot of fun stuff.
I only cut out like 3 paragraphs out of the entire thing last night.
Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on to powers and abilities.
No, obviously being a vampire, a very large portion of this is your typical vampiric powers and abilities and weaknesses. Which, like when we did Vampirella last week, there are some that do stand out as different.
Yep. Okay, so let's go into it. Super strength, as always. Vampires are always stronger than a human, but this guy can lift up to 4 tons.
Which definitely seems a little more normal than even, or more extra than even your normal vampire.
Yeah, because a normal vampire maybe can lift a car. Like 4 tons, that's almost a tank.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is above and beyond what normal vampire. Super speed, they did not give me a actual like estimate of that. So superhuman stamina, which makes sense, agility, reflexes, and healings. And now let's get into the weird shit.
As in the healing one, that makes sense because the fact that you can come back from being staked,
yeah,
you kind of have to have some healing there.
Exactly. And now into some more of his unique abilities, like how his immortality works. Dracula, like all vampires, is functionally immortal in the sense that he is immune to the effects of aging and is immune to all known earthly diseases as long as he ingests fresh blood on a regular basis to maintain his vitality. Once killed, Dracula's power is such that he can resurrect himself under the proper conditions. If incinerated as by sunlight or fire, Dracula can reconstitute himself if his ashes are placed in a coffin filled with soil from his homeland. If staked through the heart, Dracula can regenerate once the stake is removed.
Which, yeah, a lot of that, except for maybe the being incinerated part, the stake one is definitely always a very common vampire trope.
As long as it gets removed, generally the vampire is not fully dead.
And they just it's like just taking a really long, painful nap.
Yeah, exactly. That you're weirdly awake for. It's like sleep paralysis. And the person who did it's your sleep paralysis demon.
Right.
Okay.
So he also has hypnotism. Dracula is able to hypnotize others by gazing into their eyes for a short period of time. As Lord of Vampires, Dracula can compel other vampires to follow his orders unless their willpower is strong enough to resist him. Which I feel like that would only be other top-tier vampires. Like, it wouldn't be your normal thrall.
No.
None of them, I guarantee, have a willpower strong enough.
Oh, no. It would definitely be, top-tier vampires of either lineage vampires or even possibly, vampires that got turned but had an ability, like Captain America.
Yeah.
And that being a super soldier, he might have the capability.
Yep.
Okay, so shapeshifting. Dracula is able to shapeshift into bats, rats, a wolf, and mist. He can also turn himself into human-sized or larger wolfen and bat-like forms.
Which I find interesting that he can turn into things other than bats or mist, which is your extremely typical vampire stuff. But the fact that you can turn into rats and a wolf,
yeah, that's kind of cool.
That is very different. Very awesome, but not normal.
I think the wolf one is the closest to being something that others have done, but definitely not normal.
Yeah, no, like that even for a wolf thing, that's very rare.
And also being able to turn into wolf-like creatures, that implies like werewolf status, like creature. Like that's kind of awesome.
And then he also has sorcery. He is a very powerful magician. He is able to summon and command the lesser vampires, undead, packs of wild dogs, bats, and rats. So I guess at least the rats still kind of fit with his transforming.
True. Which still also kind of cool, being able to summon shit, like have a basic understanding of magic.
Right.
It's got to be helpful when dealing with magic people coming in.
I mean, he's lived long enough. He better have learned some magic somewhere along the way.
Oh, right. It's clearly a useful thing. And now here's a pretty unique one. He has considerable control over the elements. He has weather manipulation. Enough to oppose Storm or Thor. However, Dracula is severely weakened for an extended period of time afterwards.
Which makes sense, because like unlike Storm and Thor, who that's pretty much their natural ability, he has to go through a little extra work to do it.
Which, honestly, the fact that he's able to even compete with Storm, impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, yeah, granted, I get it, Thor can command weather, but Thor more just makes thunderclouds and the storm appear. It's less controlled with
I was
Thor.
like, then most of the time with Thor, all he's ever really shown to do is control lightning.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the storm, but he was able to call the lightning from us and make a storm to call lightning.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the extent of his ability that's really shown.
Meanwhile, Storm can straight up make a tornado and control specifically where the tornado moves.
Right, like we've seen in cartoons and movies how deep she gets with her storms.
Yeah, so the fact that he's competing on that kind of level, impressive. Like,
even if it
does
does weaken you, but you better hope you finish them.
Yeah, right.
And then he also has some mind control. Any person that was bitten by Dracula is able to be influenced by him through a sort of A person bitten by Dracula is able to be influenced by him through a sort of empathic link. Only beings of exceptionally strong wills are capable of resisting him. So similar to kind of the hypnotism from earlier, where if you're strong enough mentally, you can resist him, but you're less likely to. For most people, he's going to be biting.
Yeah, which, makes sense. Now let's get into... Oh, yeah, just some standard regular abilities. Dracula is an accomplished swordsman and magician. He possesses a gifted intellect, which the swordsman, like I said, very accurate to his real-world equivalent, who was known for his brutality in one-on-one sword combat.
Oh, yeah.
And also, oh, man, ugh. Dracula, like all vampires, has a number of special vulnerabilities. His greatest weakness, like that of other vampires, is he must ingest about 1 quart of fresh blood in order to maintain his vitality. Otherwise, which I don't know how much a quart is, but sounds like a lot. Otherwise, if he does not ingest that, his powers will steadily decrease to the point where he enters a comatose state. Dracula is highly allergic to silver and can be severely injured or killed with silver weapons. If Dracula is injured by silver, his recovery time is considerably slower than normal. Dracula can be killed by having a wooden stake plunged into his heart, somehow interrupting the mystical energies that keep him alive. Somehow. Let's not go into any detail there. Dracula can also be killed by being decapitated and being exposed to fire. Dracula can also be affected by religious icons such as the Star of David or a crucifix, for example. Dracula is affected by the strength of the wielder's faith in the icon and religion it represents, not the size of the icon itself. That's kind of unique. So basically, it's your faith in the icon you're using that affects him.
Yeah, the faith of the icon and the religion it represents.
Yeah.
I was like, that is the more... I feel like the more important part of that is the fact that it's your strength and the faith it represents.
Yes. So
But
like
I also find it interesting that nowhere in history have we ever really seen anything but a crucifix be used. So it's kind of interesting to see that they bring in the Star of David.
yeah, like
Which is cool.
Really,
It's just really interesting knowing that we only really ever see crosses with vampires.
Yeah, and this is kind of a unique one, and also unique that's based entirely on your faith, and you're the one wielding it.
Which, that makes sense, because, I mean, you always see him getting drawn away by these little tiny crosses.
Yeah.
Like, so, it has to be made up somehow that this little thing can do that.
Which I'll admit, I kind of like that better than most versions where it's literally just anybody can wield the cross and it hurts them. So Dracula must rest within his coffin during daylight hours. He must line his coffin with soil from his homeland in order to both sustain his power and travel more than 100 miles from his birthplace. Oh, that's kind of a...
That one definitely has to suck.
Yeah, right? Holy cow. That's like almost a Groundhog's Day drawback.
Right.
I can only make it so far. Dracula used to be unable to withstand exposure to direct sunlight, since it would instantly dry up his skin and eventually crumble his body to powder within a matter of minutes. After transferring Wolverine's blood to his body, Dracula got rid of this specific weakness. Great job, Wolverine.
I kind of wish we had found out how that all became a thing.
Yeah.
Because was it just, did he get it from somewhere else? Did he get it from Wolverine directly?
Well, from the little knowledge I have on it, I think Dracula actually had a full-blown run-in with the X-Men.
Oh, I'm sure he has over history.
Because I'm pretty sure right now, Jubilee is actually a vampire.
Nice.
In the comics.
But this is one of those, I feel like you probably got it from like Weapon X when he was being created or something. Like, I don't feel like he got it directly from Wolverine. I don't think that would have gone well for him.
Oh, probably not. Like, I could see him getting it from Wolverine, like straight up taking a bite and then Wolverine just being like, oh, hell no, and just turning on him.
I was like, I don't think he could have gotten close enough to Wolverine, to be honest. It
I
would
know.
have been a very tough situation.
It would have been interesting to see. We should find that comic. There's so many comics. The list keeps piling up.
Yeah, it's going to keep doing that.
Okay, now moving on to his other media appearances. I will let you take the wheel.
So, first off, we have his TV appearances, and they're all just like single episodes out of each of these shows. He appears in Spider-Woman, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Avengers Assemble, The Superhero Squad Show, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Hulk in the Agents of Smash.
Yeah.
So, he really doesn't show up in a lot of things.
Yeah, I will say in Avengers Assemble, he actually does have a major recurring role as part of the cabal that the Red Skull forms.
Okay.
So that one he actually gets a...
So that one actually has a little bit of a sustenance.
He's actually in a few seasons in that one
Okay.
because of that. But still, like, yeah, they definitely play on the fact that it's still Dracula. And
Right.
I do like it because they do show him in his comic, like, warrior form, too.
Nice. So in film, he only has two, where he would, in 1980, he appears in the anime TV movie based on the Tomb of Dracula. The movie would be titled Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned.
Huh.
And he also would appear under the name Drake in the 2004 movie Blade Trinity, which I did not know.
Oh, yeah. It's,
I've also never seen Blade, which I really need to.
Oh, my God. We have to watch that. They're so good. Okay, third one's not the greatest, but it's still fun.
And then he has a couple of things in video games. Now, first off, we have an announcement. He is the first Marvel character to not be in a Lego game.
Oh, my God. We found one.
Took us long enough, and of course, it'd be some kind of small, random character like Dracula.
Yeah, just especially knowing how they update games, I'm shocked they never just did a Halloween special update.
Right.
That's the part that kind of shocks me.
So he is first an unlockable character in the MMO Marvel Superhero Squad Online. And then he is a group boss in the mobile game Marvel Avengers Alliance. and is also an unlockable character in the mobile game Marvel Avengers Academy. So he's got a very small line in even games.
Yeah, and
most of them are the mobile Facebook kind of random small games that a lot of people play, but nobody really cares about.
Yeah, you reading that list, I'm like, oh, man, this guy's not got nothing, like no good games.
No.
And
one last fun fact is this version of Dracula was ranked number 3 in a listing of Marvel Comics monster characters in 2015.
That's kind of cool.
Makes me really want to know who the rest of that list is.
Right? Like, who was number 1 and 2? Who's beating him out as far as monsters? Man, if it's the Abomination in that, I'm just going to be pissed.
It's probably Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, he does appear. Oh, yeah, also the Wolfman by Night. And then
probably those two. It's probably Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster.
Yep. Then you also have Mummy. Well, Marvel actually... Oh, yeah, Man-Thing. Wow, Marvel has a lot of monsters.
They really do.
I forgot about it. So, Joker, let me ask you. You a fan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always been a fan of Dracula anyways, but just reading this story and still kind of going back to that demonic heifer, like, this version of Dracula is awesome.
Honestly, yeah, I was a fan before I started the research on this character. I was a fan of his Marvel version. I'm even more of a fan now. For anyone that's still listening, if you got something out of this, enjoyed the episode, or even liked the character before from a movie, a comic, cartoon, hell, even that t-shirt that you saw one time, you're a fan too. If you want to jump on this train, why not subscribe and share with a friend? d-rael out. Y'all keep riding them rails.